League One completed it, mate. That's right, Reading Football Club are back in the Championship after 3 years away. But the big question is whether they can survive or maybe even thrive at this level. Let's find out. Welcome to Reviving the Royals Season 2. The 2025-26 season was an incredibly successful one for Reading as they secured the League One title on the final day and also won the Virtue Trophy at Wembley. Now it was time for Royals boss One Giant Pixel to put those celebrations to the back of his mind and concentrate on preparing for life back in the second tier of English football. Without doing anything, his squad was already a little bit smaller than before. After 8 seasons at the club, Andy Yeardom had left at the end of his contract, as had young wingers Jeremiah O'Kane-Peters and Emmanuel Osho. Centre-back Finley Burns and midfielder Kamari Doyle had returned to Manchester City and Brighton respectively as their loans had finished. And so as the summer transfer window opened, this was how the Royals squad looked. The gaffer wanted to give most of these guys the chance to prove themselves in the Championship, but that didn't mean there wouldn't be a few changes at the SCL Stadium. With almost £7 million burning a hole in his pocket, his first target was a centre-back to replace Finley Burns. The rangy Hayden Matthews looked like the perfect fit. He became the manager's first signing as he arrived from Portsmouth, who had just been relegated to League One for £950,000. Reading goalkeeper Joel Pereira was a sensation during the club's charge to the League One title, winning the competition's Player of the Year award and coming top of the clean sheet table. His understudy Jack Stevens hadn't had much of a look in, and when St Louis City FC came calling with a £470,000 bid, the Royals reluctantly let him go. One Giant Pixel immediately moved for a new substitute goalie in the form of Pierce Charles. He came in from Sheffield Wednesday, who had also just been relegated to League One for just shy of £2 million. Then disaster. A banking issue temporarily wiped £1.8 million off Reading's transfer kitty, but the boss did not let that stop him from more wheeling and dealing. Defensive midfielder Liam Fraser was sold to FCSB, formerly known as Steaua Bucharest, for $730,000. And young fullback John Ryan also went to Romania, joining FC Metalo Globus for $400,000. Of that money, just under £1 million was spent on Bradley Ibrahim, a defensive midfielder from Plymouth Argyle. After Ibrahim's arrival came the welcome news that the banking issue had been resolved, and Reading decided to splash yet more cash straight away. They raided League Two outfit Accrington Stanley, picking up Swedish winger Isak Brusberg for just under £1 million. And the Royals' final deal of the summer saw striker Jack Marriott head to Austria as he joined Wolfsberger AC for £900,000. The new season was just around the corner, and despite those comings and goings, Reading's starting lineup hadn't actually changed all that much. In fact, Hayden Matthews was the only new signing to go straight into the first 11. The rest would have to watch on from the bench for now. Now, would any members of the club's youth academy be making the step up anytime soon? There were definitely a few players with the potential to do so, but not quite yet. The first game of the new season saw Reading welcome 2013 League Cup winners Swansea City to the SCL Stadium, and any fears that the Royals would struggle in the Championship were soon dispelled as they tore into their opponents. Unsurprisingly, it was last season's top scorer Kelvin Ehibachiman who got them up and running after a flowing move. Reading were flying, and the forwards saw another couple of chances go begging either side of half-time as the visitors wilted. Then, on his debut, Bradley Ibrahim galloped through the middle and played a perfect pass into the path of Ehibachiman, who netted with ease. Swansea finally woke up late on, but they could not find a way past Pereira, who picked up his first clean sheet of the season. It would not be his last. Now, it may not be the most glamorous of local derbies, but this was a match that Royals fans have been waiting for since the fixture list was released. And they were soon celebrating as Daniel Trezeguet was sped away down the left before cutting inside and giving Paddy Lane an easy tap-in. Brian de Keersmaeker launched a one-man mission to try to haul the visitors level, but he was denied twice by the ever-impressive Pereira. The second half was all about the battle between Reading midfielder Charlie Savage and Oxford United goalkeeper Jamie Cumming. The former was denied by the latter on no fewer than 3 separate occasions, but thankfully the hosts were not made to rue those missed chances as they ran out 1-0 winners. Having already seen off Mansfield Town and Bristol City, Reading were rewarded with a trip to face Premier League side Nottingham Forest in round 3 of the Carabao Cup. Yes, Ange Postecoglou was still there and looking to win a trophy in what was his second season with the club. And his side started well, dominating the first half without ever really creating a clear goal-scoring opportunity. But as we all know, games can change in an instant, and that's exactly what happened here. Reading had been largely toothless in attack, but just after the restart, a lucky bounce fell to Paddy Lane, and he was denied by Alex Romero. That seemed to boost the visitors' confidence, and they then put together a patient passing move that ended with Elliott tucking it away to stun the Forest faithful. Reading then showed they could be quick and direct when necessary, as Wing found Brusberg and his pass allowed Ehibachiman to double the Royals' advantage. Game over? Not quite. The hosts went up the other end, and when the ball dropped to Amari Hutchinson on the edge of the box, he used the outside of his boot to send a wonderfully curling effort into the top corner. It was an outstanding finish, but could it spark a late comeback? The answer was no. With time running out, Ibrahim found Chirewa, and he cut the ball back for Tyler Saki to fire into the roof of the net. This was the first time in 3 attempts that One Giant Pixel side had overcome Premier League opposition, and it also ensured that if Big Ange was to win a trophy in his second season, it would not be the Carabao Cup. The Royals went on to defeat West Bromwich Albion in round 4 to set up a quarter-final against Graham Potter's West Ham United at the London Stadium. The first 15 minutes set the tone for this one as the hosts carved out chance after chance, and only some exceptional goalkeeping kept them out. It was therefore no surprise when Nicholas Fulkrug held off a defender and found Mateus Fernandes, who in turn found the far corner of the net to put them ahead. Pereira did manage to get a hand to it, but even he couldn't deny the hammers on this occasion. Reading were being thoroughly outplayed, but they could have dragged themselves back into it before the break. Paddy Lane found himself one-on-one with the keeper, but hit the post when he looked certain to score. The second half largely followed the same pattern as the first, with the hosts dominating and Pereira just about managing to keep his side in it with save after save. But 1-0 is always a dangerous scoreline, and the Royals almost snatched a goal at the death, but Chirewa's effort was turned around the post, and that was that. Reading's Carabao Cup adventure may have been over, but they were absolutely flying in the Championship. Then this happened. Does anyone remember Lasagna Gate, the incident that derailed Tottenham's quest to qualify for the Champions League in 2006? This was basically the same thing and left many of Reading's starting 11 too unwell to face Preston at Deepdale. One Giant Pixel just about managed to cobble a team together, but the big question was how they would cope in the circumstances. Well, in the first half they were all at sea, but fortunately standing goalkeeper Pierce Charles was in fine fettle. And he had to be, as Preston created chances almost at will, with Will Keane, Benjamin Whiteman, Milutin Osmajic and Paul Valentin all testing the young goalie. But the visitors held firm, and then with an hour played, a short corner routine saw Tyler Saki find Ehibachiman, and he hammered a shot into the far corner. Buoyed by this, the Royals then put together a fine passing move that ended with the evergreen Matt Ritchie rolling the ball into the path of Ehibachiman, and he did the rest. The young striker was on fire and completed his hat-trick late on after another great move involving Shea Spencer and Isaac Brusberg. Preston had capitulated at this point, and in added time Ehibachiman turned provider as he picked out the run of Spencer, who finished with aplomb. If any match summed up the togetherness and fighting spirit of this Reading squad, this was it. At the season's halfway point, the Royals were 10 points clear of Leeds United at the top of the table and seemingly strolling to a first Championship title triumph since 2012. Given how well the players were performing, they decided not to make any changes to their squad in the transfer window. And having beaten Leeds in the third round of the FA Cup, they were full of confidence as they travelled to North London to face Thomas Frank's Spurs in round 4. The hosts had just signed Slovenian goalkeeper Jan Oblak from Atletico Madrid, and this was his debut for the club. And he had to be at his very best early on as Ben Elliott worked some space on the edge of the box before firing in a low shot that the keeper tipped wide. Reading were playing with real assurance and conviction and went close again soon afterwards as Ehibachiman fired just wide under pressure from the onrushing Oblak. But as we all know, you have to take your chances when you're on top, and that was certainly the case here. Mathis Tel showed what Tottenham were capable of as he forced Pereira into a good save just before half-time, and their class eventually told. With fewer than 20 minutes remaining, Mexican winger Alexis Vega produced a delicious cross, and there was Mohamed Kudus to power a header beyond Pereira. The Royals could not respond, and their opponents made the game safe in the final few minutes, as Kudus produced another good finish to send the Spurs fans into raptures. As Reading manager, One Giant Pixel had now come up against Premier League sides on no fewer than 5 occasions, and had lost on 4 4 of them. That did not bode well if they did go up, but at least their latest cup exit meant they could focus solely on the championship for the rest of the campaign. The first test of their bounce-back ability came against Southampton in the driving rain at the SCL Stadium, and the visiting Saints threatened to pour cold water on the hosts' promotion push early on. Charlie Savage gave the ball away and Finn Azaz set off on a run that ended with a shot into the top corner. Just minutes later they were at it again, with the impressive Azaz sending in a low cross that was converted by the on-rushing Damien Downs. Were Reading on their way to another defeat? Not if Kelvin Ehebachiman had anything to do with it. First of all, the young forward set up Elliott, only to see his shot come crashing back off the post. Just 5 minutes later he tried again, and this time Charlie Savage ran through to find the far corner and get the SCL believing again. Then, not long before half-time, Daniel Trewewa went careering down the left-hand side before finding Ehebachiman, who took a touch before equalising with a classy finish. The Royals were well and truly back in business, and they really ramped up the pressure on their opponents in the second half. However, time and again, Southampton goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale was on hand to deny them. Then, with just seconds remaining, Savage played the ball into Isaac Brusberg and, well, this happened. Cue wild celebrations on the pitch and in the stands as Reading snatched victory in a game they had looked like losing early on. After that, the Royals just kept on winning. Against Coventry at the SCL, Elliott set them on their way to yet another 3 points. Ehebachiman then doubled the hosts' lead with quarter of an hour remaining before Saki ran through to finish things off late on. Against fellow high flyers Brighton, meanwhile, Ehebachiman scored the only goal of the game as they secured yet another vital victory. Now, I would love to say that the promotion race was full of tension and drama, but truth be told, it wasn't. In the end, Reading secured a top 2 finish and a place in the Premier League with 6 games remaining. They celebrated with a trip to North East Wales to face Wrexham, the club owned by actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. And let me tell you, this match featured mistakes that wouldn't look out of place in any film or TV blooper reel. Things started off well enough for the visitors, with Elliott finding Ehebachiman, who finished with ease. Just minutes later, the two of them were at it again as the Royals doubled their lead and seemingly put this contest to bed. But a couple of missed tackles from captain Lewis Wing and centre-back Paudie O'Connor allowed George Thomason to smash the ball past Piers Charles. Then it was Charles' turn to make a hideous mistake as just after half-time, his pass went straight to former Royals striker Sam Smith and he volleyed home the equaliser. The crowd didn't have to wait long for the next major lapse in concentration, but this time it was from one of the Wrexham players. Dominic Hyam tried to play the ball back to the keeper but only succeeded in picking out Paddy Lane, and he was never going to pass up that opportunity. Reading finally made the game safe late on as for the 3rd time in this match, Elliott found Ehebachiman and he produced an emphatic finish to seal his hat-trick. That victory meant the Royals went into their home game against Leeds United knowing that a win would secure the title. Not only that, but it would also take them above the 106 points they accrued when they came top of the Championship back in 2006. Just a few minutes in, and would you believe it, Elliott found Ehebachiman and he produced a thunderous finish to beat Leeds keeper Luca Perry. I would love to know how many times these two have combined for a goal since One Giant Pixel took over. Sean Longstaff and Brendan Aronson did their best to emulate that partnership on 2 occasions, but the latter twice failed to beat Pereira. Then, in first half stoppage time, Ehebachiman waited and waited before picking out Trewewa, and he made it 2-0. If Leeds were going to find a way back into this one, they needed to score next, and they did just that as Longstaff got the assist that his fine display deserved. Noah Okafor's strike gave the visiting fans hope that their team could grab at least a point. But that hope was extinguished as Elliott made a lung-bursting run into space, took Ehebachiman's pass and swept the ball past Perry. Was that the knockout blow? If it wasn't, this certainly was. A quick Reading break in added time saw Ibrahim burst forward and Ehebachiman complete a hat-trick of assists as Brusberg tapped in. This display was a microcosm of the way in which Reading had swept all before them in winning the Championship title. All that was left was for captain Lewis Wing to step forward and lift the Royals' 3rd trophy since One Giant Pixel had become boss. The manager's record against Premier League opposition would undoubtedly be a cause for concern among the Reading faithful, but at that moment they didn't care one bit. There was just one question left to answer. Could Reading beat the record 111 points that Birmingham City achieved in winning League One in 2025? Of course they could. And while the 118 points is the standout stat here, one shouldn't ignore the fact that they only lost twice and conceded just 18 times in 46 games. Having won the League One equivalent the previous year, Joel Pereira was named as the Championship's Player of the Season. Kelvin Ahibachuman bagged the Golden Boot with a whopping 33 goals, while Ben Elliott got the 5th highest number of assists. Somehow Elliott was the only Royals player to get into the Championship Team of the Season. Disgraceful stuff. But it didn't matter really. What did matter was that Reading will be plying their trade in the Premier League next season, and you'll be able to see how they get on next time. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like or even subscribe to the channel. Goodbye for now.